Happy talk. Cheese. Nope, not even that one word needed. I hardly have to open my mouth. The layout, the stance, a slight adjustment of the angle, all down to a mere movement of the hand. That's why photography is so perfect. That and the exquisite silent stillness when the world holds its breath just before I squeeze the button, take the shot. As the director, I cue in each freeze frame with my raised palm. The bride, the centrepiece, usually notices first. She nudges the groom, who elbows the best man, and he calls for hush. All he wants, like everyone else who's had to suffer through the various group photos, is finally to get to the booze. It's an unspoken convention that no one speaks during photos, not even with ventriloquist lips. But today, my 7th wedding, has been even easier. The bride and groom wanted all natural shots, no posing, except this last one, the group photo, one and all 120 of them, the glorious broad splendour of Hipping Hall smiling kindly down on them from behind. When everyone's finally assembled, I raise my hand. When it's almost quiet, I assert 3 fingers. At 2, it's dead silent. Usually. But not today. That bleeding best man, again. The worst man. He's been a prat all afternoon, never still, always yapping. I scowl into my viewfinder as, middle front row, he twists this way and that to natter to someone behind, hands in the air, caramel fringe flopping this way and that. I brandish my 2 fingers. A woman sporting a pink feathered fascinator taps him on the shoulder, nods towards the camera. He faces me, closes his mouth. 1, my finger says. Blah, he says, yet more blah, blah, right at the wrong moment. My first talkie. My blood fizzes. I should take the shot again, but the group's already breaking up. I'd have to step forward, shout above the cacophony, herd them back. And Kirsty, the bride, is already lifting her skirts, ready for a drink herself. She catches my eye, gives me a wave of thanks. It'll have to do. My job here is done. Hey, Phil! Now I freeze. Pressing my remote car key now, I pretend I didn't hear. You must be Phil. Floppy Fringe puts his hand on my car door, a barrier between us. www.philsphotographsuk. It says so on the tin. My beloved Malcolm, a tin? How dare he? And what the hell does he want? I'm Eddie. My sister had a baby in March, Jeremy. She's just started thinking about his christening, and she's looking for a photographer. And the bride said, I'm busy, I cut in. You don't even know when it is. He shakes his caramel fringe out of his eyes, which, it turns out, are made up of alternating segments of orangey hazel and green. I'm busy, I repeat. Doesn't he get it? I'd rather miss the business I so badly need than put up with any more of him. Oh, all right. Do you know anybody else, then? I shake my head. Don't say much, do you? He says, still gripping my door. I shake it away from him. It's overrated, I say, folding myself into my mini sanctuary. So I've been told, he sighs, jingling coins in his pocket. I reach for the inner handle, tug the door closed, key in ignition. Come for a drink, Phil. It's gorgeous inside the hall. How'd he get round there so fast, crouching in the passenger door, fringe right over his eyes now? I know. Used to be a waitress there, I growl. Another job where you don't have to speak. Not at weddings when everyone's got to have the same menu. Shut the door. I can't, he says. Sweat prickles under my arms for the first time, even on this hot June afternoon. Sorry, Phil, he says, his voice less strident now. I don't get things right. Too full on, Mum says. Fact is, Phil, christening or not, I need you. What? I start the engine, slide into first. My right foot itches to press down, but then the door would knock him out, as well he knows. Instead, I close my eyes and focus on my breathing. 3 counts in, 1 out, over and over. People need to be in photos when they're still, quiet, controlled, not running amok, not in my face, in my space. You all right, Phil? He says. I will be once you've got out of my fricking car door, I mutter, eyes still closed. Silence. A gulp. His. I would, Phil, honest I would, but I can't, not without you. My eyes flick open. His trousers got hooked on the edge of the car door or something. See, I'm best man, right? Got to give a speech, soon, and I can't do it without you. Don't be stupid, we've only just met. Ha, so you admit we have met, we do know each other's names after all. So, not my problem. You're the only one, Phil. You're still, calm. If you're there, I'll be able to do it. I sigh massively. Eddie, you clearly love being in the limelight. I can see how it might seem that way, but it's just a cover-up for the seething bed of nervous snakes that is my nerves. I roll my eyes. I know, he says. I do drama too. Another cover-up. It makes it all the worse, Phil, the pressure. Because every single person here thinks I'm confident and going to give a sharp, hilarious speech. Aren't you? He taps his top pocket. Got me flashcards in here, but I'll gabble, fluff the punchlines. He looks up at me from under his fringe, spangles of russet glinting in the sun. If you could see your way to just standing at the back, opposite the top table, Phil. I cover my face. What is this? The worst pick-up ever? The most persistent, I'll give him that. But I just want to get home, lie on my bed, not see anyone for the rest of the day, let alone 120 strangers getting louder and louder as the drinks flow. So I wait around for 2 hours while you all have a slap-up 4-course meal, I ask, cross now. No. Yep, 5 words where 1 would have done. They're having the speeches first, before the meal. And Phil, I need you. Phil, he beseeches, on his knees now. Low down in my heart, something yields. He needs me. When did anyone ever need me? Only I can soothe him. Such a small thing to give him 10 minutes. Don't even need to talk to him, or anyone else for that matter. I just stand. He nods vigorously, his fringe finding a life of its own. Then you let me go? Deal? A beam lights up his whole face from within. Of course, and then... I hold up my hand and he shuts up. I'm actually training him. 1 more condition, I tell him. Hit me with it. You don't say another word to me. He makes that corny zip motion across his lips. We get all the way to the curving steps of the hall, a good 5 minutes up the gravel drive, without him saying 1 word. Maybe a friend wouldn't be such a bad thing if he'd actually not talk. Bit pointless that, Phil, says Mum's voice on my shoulder. She worries about me living alone, spending all my time on my own, except for my photography jobs. Everyone's seated once we get inside the big hall, nattering away. Again. You'd think they'd have run out of pointless, empty talk by now, but people seem to feel obliged to fill every silence. Eddie looks at the top table, the space next to the groom where he needs to be, then back at me. His eyes are all over the place, and he's gone pale. He really is afraid. Show me your cards, I tell him. You have to hear a lot of best man speeches in my line of work. His hand shaking, he gives me a wad of cards. All are numbered, all have key words on them in extravagant, loopy handwriting. So, you know what you're going to say about the groom, I tell him, handing them back. Is it all clean? His hand wavers in the air and his mouth's found a tiny smile again. Some of it funny? He nods. Some true? He nods again. Some sincere? He winces. I raise my eyebrows. Think of something now. He nods again. You've got a genuine compliment for the bride? He flips through the cards, holds one up. And you finish by thanking the bridesmaids, then toasting them. You know that, right? He nods again. Then you're good to go. He looks at me with those orange hazel eyes, still tormented, and his mouth turned down. It'll be over before you know it, Eddie. Now I sigh. That's not good enough when your heart's racing like mine does every time I leave the house or have to speak to a stranger. I put my hands on the top of his arms and turn him towards me. 3 breaths in, 1 out. We do that together 3 times. He looks a little better, but I recognise the terror still lurking in those eyes. Eddie, I tell him, when it's time, say it all to me. And, looking right over the tops of everyone's heads so no one would know, he does. He doesn't gabble. He doesn't fluff his punchlines. Everyone laughs at the right time. Mothers dab their eyes at the right time. Eddie finishes at the right time, when everyone still wants more. To the bridesmaids, he says, raising his glass. But he's looking straight at me. When everyone claps, I do too, my hands in the air. Eddie smiles his beautiful smile at me before sitting down and chatting away to the groom, 19 to the dozen, back on full form. So I turn to go. A quiet joy hums in my heart. He did it. And just maybe it was because of me. But each step I take down from the hall, my happiness fades a little. I pause on the bottom step, the vision of my empty bedsit no longer as rosy as it was. A hand touches my shoulder. Eddie's hand is up in the air, like he's back at school. I reach up and do the unzip thing along his mouth. Where you going, Phil? He bursts out. Home, that was the deal. He stuffs his hands in his pockets and looks down, the first time I've seen him lost for words. Nodding now, he looks up at me. Thank you, Phil. He taps his heart to show he really means it. Mine expands a little. I was needed today by this gorgeous, garrulous lad. Biting my lip, I nod back. We stand looking at each other, both lost for words now. He opens his mouth. Phil, he whispers, stay, because you want to. I blink fast. I don't get it. Kirsty's made space for you, next to me, and I promise I'll try not to speak too much. I can't rein in my smile. As we make our way to the top table, a series of stills runs across my mind's eye. Eddie and I on a walk in Reed Woods, in the Film and Photography Museum, at the zoo. Nice pictures, but thinking about the talking involved winds my heartbeat into panic mode. So, how about watching the latest Christopher Nolan movie on the big screen, holding hands, no talking needed? Now, that would be a start. I'll talk a bit more, he'll talk a lot less. Give it time, and it might, just might, be something I could get used to.